morning, and thank you all for joining us. I'm Melissa Urich, the Wetlands Coordinator with the Upper Susquehanna Coalition, and it's my pleasure to introduce the second week of our 2024 Watershed Wednesdays series. Watershed Wednesdays are hosted by the Upper Susquehanna Coalition and the Otsego County Conservation Association, and they're scheduled for each Wednesday from now until November 20th. The full schedule is posted on the USC Facebook page and on our website, where you can also sign up for email announcements under the Watershed Wednesdays tab. The sessions are recorded and can be accessed both on the USC webpage and on our YouTube page. And to get things started, our presenter today is Johanna Haripto from the Susquehanna River Basin Commission with a presentation on SRBC's Eels in the Classroom program. Johanna is originally from Susquehanna County, PA, and has worked various jobs in environmental education and water quality research across both the Chesapeake and the Delaware Bays. She studied ecology at Lycoming College in Williamsport, PA, and later received her MS in Water Science and Policy from the University of Delaware. After graduating, she began her role at SRBC, where her current work focuses on stream monitoring and protection across the Susquehanna River Basin. Outside of work, she can usually be found reading, hiking, spoiling her cat, or tending her garden. We'd like to ask everyone to hold their questions until the end of Johanna's presentation, and at that time we can either have you unmute or ask your questions on the chat. And go ahead and take it away, Johanna. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Melissa, for that introduction. Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Johanna Ripto. I'm an environmental scientist with the Susquehanna River Basin Commission, and I'm excited today to share with you why we are head over heels for eels and about our environmental education program, Eels in the Classroom. There we go. So before going into the education outreach components, I just wanted to give a brief history of the American eel. So the American eel is a native fish to our Susquehanna River and its tributaries, and actually can be found from Maine all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. Now, prior to the early 1900s, American eels were ubiquitous with the Susquehanna River and would commonly be caught when you were out fishing or recreating on the river. And in fact, dating back to colonial times, Native Americans used to capture the eels and actually help the original colonists survive winters by drying out the eels as a food source. So they've been very important historically. However, there's been a near 100-year human-induced absence from the river due to human impacts. And these include overlogging and overharvesting, leading to sediment and erosion into our river, reducing water quality and new sources of pollution, in addition to overharvesting of the eels themselves. The photo on the right there is an adult female eel. They can actually reach up to 4 feet in length. And the American eels actually have a very interesting life cycle that we'll get to on the next slide. And that ties into why their populations have also declined, because they are migratory fish. So our American eels are actually catadromous, meaning they're born out in the Sargasso Sea in the Atlantic, and they migrate to freshwater to live out their lives. So the Sargasso Sea is actually a sea bound by ocean currents and not by landmass, which is really interesting, out in the North Atlantic. And so our eels are born there, and there's actually over 10 species of freshwater eels, but our American eels migrate towards the coast of North America. And so they're born in small eggs, and then they go through these incredible life stages. They start out as a flattened, almost like a willow leaf shape, actually, and then they become more eel-like, but then they're transparent, known as the glass eel. And at this point, they're starting to drift towards the coast of North America. And when they're around 2 to 4 years old, they become what we call elvers, or young eels. And they've regained their pigment at this point. They're darker in color. You can recognize them as an eel. And this is where they're actually reaching the Chesapeake Bay and in the estuary. And so once they reach the estuary, they need to migrate up into the freshwater, into the Susquehanna, and then into its tributaries. And once they reach there, they become a subadult yellow eel, about 6 inches to a foot, and then ultimately the adult silver eel, like we saw in the first photo, where the females are larger than males and can be almost 4 feet in length. And what's really fascinating is that they will spend the majority of their adult lives in the river before out migrating. And one day they will just know that it's time to turn around, go back down through the river, back through the Chesapeake Bay, and back to the Sargasso Sea to lay their eggs and complete their life cycle. And females will spawn only one time in their life. And what's also interesting is when they're in the Sargasso Sea, the American and the European eels are all born there, and they somehow know which way to go. The European eels go right, the North American eels go left, but scientists really don't know why. So this is also a fascinating species that has a lot to be discovered through research, and it's really exciting to be a part of this work. So because our American eels are migratory fish, that also means that their populations are affected when things can impact their migratory pathways. And these include the construction of dams along the Susquehanna River. So of course, our eels are coming up through the Chesapeake Bay, and they actually hit 4 major dams before reaching Harrisburg on their migratory journey. The first of which is the Conowingo Dam in Maryland. The Conowingo Dam is a hydroelectric dam, and because it's so large in size, eels have trouble getting up and over it. So we'll see on the next slide some things in place that can help our eels get up and over the dam. But there are a lot of groups, including the Susquehanna River Anadromous Fish Restoration Cooperative, that are working to help all kinds of migratory fish up and over these dams. You can see the list of fish on the left there. I won't read through it all, but these are some of the goals and fish that these groups are helping to get up and over the dams to continue their migratory journeys, whether they're going from fresh to salt or salt to fresh water. But in particular, these dams have severely impacted the populations of American eels. So this is where our work comes into play on the eel's journey. So by the time the eels have reached the dams, they are around 2 to 4 years old. They are elvers again. They're in that darker pigmentation color now. And the eels that we get for eels in the classroom actually come from 2 dams, one of them the Conowingo Dam in Maryland, and the other the Pine Grove Dam, a smaller dam in Chester County, Pennsylvania. So this work wouldn't be possible without the cooperation of multiple agencies, including dam owners Constellation and Normando consultants that help transport the eels above the dam. So we're very thankful for everyone's participation. So how our program works is every fall we go down to the dam and we're permitted a subset of American eels that are captured at the dam to take out to classrooms for our program. And so the eels come through, I'll show a graph in a couple slides, actually by the tens of thousands per day on some really high flow days, which is really incredible. And so when we do have our small subset of eels, we're giving out up to 10 elvers per classroom. And we usually drop them off the week after Labor Day when school is starting. And we do our best to try to have students in the classroom when we drop them off, which is the exciting part for us too. But once the eels are in the classroom, the students will raise them throughout the school year with their teachers, and they must be released back into the main stem Susquehanna or one of its tributaries by April of May the next year. And then if teachers would like to participate again, they can sign up, and then we would drop off new eels come the fall. So the photo on the right here is an example of one of the eel catches. This is actually at the Conowingo Dam in Maryland. And the metal structure on the right here is the eel ladder. So it actually kind of looks like one of those metal ladders you might see at a playground, but there is water flowing down it continuously. And that flow of water at the bottom is actually what attracts the eels to coming up the ladder. The eels have amazing swimming instincts to always go upstream because of their migration. And so they actually can climb up and over a lot of structures as long as it is wet. But unfortunately, not many of the dams on their own. And the graph on the left is showing the total elver captures at the Conowingo and Octorara dams, where we do get our eels from for eels in the classroom. You can see this year on the end, 2024, has been a pretty high year so far. These migratory numbers are tracked from May through November of each year at the dams. There are groups that go through and will count how many eels come through each day during those months, and then they will truck them up and above that last dam and release them into tributaries or the main stem so they can continue their journey. So this year's been pretty high so far. We have a couple months to go still. You can see our highest year was 2021 with over 600,000 eels captured, which is really great to see. So I'm hoping this video plays for everyone. This is what it's like when we drop off the eels in the classroom. We bring them in just in a 5-gallon bucket with a bubbler. And then if students are there, then they get the honors of being there when we release the eels.
My dad likes them.
How big were the eels that you caught?
Okay, ready? Okay, you guys, we're gonna dump them in.
So these are smaller. I'm guessing those are babies.
They are. You're right.
They're like pretty big.
Sure, we got them all, okay?
Wow.
Yes.
So good.
They brought us feed and we're also gonna chop up worms and
gonna
get
get
food,
bigger.
right? Yeah, so they gradually get bigger, yeah.
Wait, when they get to a certain amount of like bigness, do we have to get rid of them?
And at the end there, one of the students was asking if the eels get to a certain bigness, do we have to release them? And so yes, they do at the end of the year, but the eels won't grow too much during their time in the tanks. They'll start off maybe 2 to 4 inches, and they could get over 6 inches in length, depending on what they're fed, but they're certainly not going to become the full-grown adults at their time in the classroom. So this is a little bit about how our program has expanded over the years. It was started just back in 2018 by Erin Henning, our fisheries biologist at the commission, with just 3 classrooms. And then it started to spread by word of mouth. Unfortunately, in 2020, of course, we didn't have any tanks in classrooms, but then since then it's grown quite continuously through the years. And this year we've actually reached 50 classrooms for the first time across 45 school districts, which is very exciting. And our first school in Maryland. So up until this year, we've just been in the Pennsylvania part of the Susquehanna River watershed. But this year we had our first school in Maryland. And what's even more exciting is come next year, we will be working with USC to expand into New York through some grants that they receive. So we're very excited for that partnership, and to help now have eels all across the basin. So these were some other videos. I'll play the one on the left here. This is an example of how the students and teachers have really engaged with the program. This classroom, they were weighing and measuring the eels when they received them, and then when they released them. And then they were also tracking how much food the eels were eating every day. So they were learning biomass calculations. So I apologize, you can't hear the sound, but hopefully it's an idea of what it looks like in the classroom, and you can see a student actually transferring one of the eels into the tank.
1.9. 1.9. Oh, that's much bigger than a lot longer. Yeah. Is that number 4? One more person to come catch an eel, put in the tank.
So you've got him.
No? Connor there?
So the eels are actually pretty active when they arrive in the tanks, even though they are nocturnal by nature. And I've had teachers who have participated for multiple years say that the tanks actually take on different personalities year to year. Some tanks are a little more quiet, and other tanks, teachers have said that the eels come out actually at feeding time, and they can almost be hand fed because they know the rituals. All right, so this is a breakdown of the kind of classrooms that we have participating. So we have mostly high school students, but we have a good mix of elementary and middle schools. And then we've been trying to expand into other learning centers as well, including private schools, environmental education centers, charter schools. We also have some tanks at a behavioral education center where the students aren't allowed to leave campus, but there's 3 tanks spread across campus there. And so we've been trying to reach different learning opportunities. And on the right-hand side, you can see on the map where our classrooms are located across the basin. They are more concentrated in the lower basin around Harrisburg and Lancaster, simply due to that's where the commission's office, their main office in Harrisburg, and that's where the program began. So it started spreading by word of mouth down there, but it's continuing to expand, and we're hoping to see more green dots spaced out across the map in the future. And for this year, we had about 3/4 of teachers returning that were in the program before, and about 25% new, which seems to be how it is every year. But we are also working on expanding our virtual learning opportunities as well for classrooms that maybe aren't able to have a tank of eels, or sometimes schools are under construction, or there might be a no pet policy. I've heard that as well at some schools. So we are also trying to make sure we have enough curriculum available. If teachers can't have a tank of eels, there's still that opportunity there. And that brings us into some of the activities we've created. So I was able to work with the Bradford County Conservation District, their education coordinator, and they actually had a wonderful curriculum that they developed. They were one of our original participants, and we worked together to break it down into different age ranges, pre-K through 5th, 6th through 8th, and 9th through 12th, and we aligned it to the next generation science standards for Pennsylvania. And so moving forward, now that we're in New York or Maryland and New York next year, this is something else we could work on is, if not the whole curriculum, definitely certain activities that could be aligned to those education standards in those respective states. But we came up with various activities to help teachers implement and better utilize the eels in their classroom, including PowerPoints on American eel life cycle, history, migratory patterns, management. For upper level students, we have data activities where students can actually help learn graphing activities from our data collected on eel restoration monitoring. We have narrated ebooks at the bottom there that kids can click on, and I've heard they're really great to have projected onto a PowerPoint and kind of go through as a class with some worksheets that have a word bank. So we are really open to feedback on the curriculum as well. So any teachers, current or in the future, we hope that it's helpful, and definitely interested in any feedback you may have, what works best for your classroom. And we want to keep it a moving conversation with our curriculum. All right, so for the last half of my presentation, I wanted to just share about some really great things our students and partners have done with the program. It's honestly been so fun for me to help run this program and just see the teachers and students get excited. It's almost felt like you build it, they will come mentality, just the things that the students have come up with. So these students here, they actually did a really great report on American eel diet preferences. And a few students have done this as well, where they will take empty plastic water bottles, cut a hole in them, and weigh them down in rocks that you can see on the right side there. And then they will have different food sources in the bottles, and then they'll count how many eels go into the bottle and what food they prefer. So in the classroom, the eels can eat dried bloodworms, dried brine shrimp, live earthworms, or live macroinvertebrates collected from a stream. We do provide some dried shrimp or worms to the teachers when we give out the eels, but we do encourage them to have a variety of diet if possible to help the eels keep their natural instincts. But these students did a great experiment trying to identify which food preferences they were there, that the eels had, and they had a great whole scientific write-up that they presented at their county agri-fair presentation. So it's been really fun just seeing the things that the students come up with. So a couple more classroom highlights. This was Juniata High School in Pennsylvania, and they actually invited us to attend their eel release day. And so at the end of every year, it's up to the students and teachers how they would like to release their eels. It could be as simple as going down to a local creek, either on their school property or at a nearby park, and releasing the eels. Or it could be as large as an envirothon style outside event if they would like, either with their school or with other participating Eels in the Classroom schools in their region. And we are happy to help facilitate either of those activities and attend if possible. And so these students here, they had a great presentation about what they learned about the eels throughout the year on their food webs, their life cycle history, any local issues that were happening in their streams in their county. And this was a really fun day. And the students got to go out and actually be there when the eels were released. So we also had another high school, and I wanted to share this one just to have an idea of different groups that teachers may be interested in working with if they do choose to do a larger outreach event. So this was Bradford County High School in Pennsylvania, and they invited their local universities, local state parks, Penn State Extension, and the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission. They all were able to come out for the day and have different stations about different conservation issues. And SRBC also came up and was able to do an electrofishing demo. And then the Bradford County Conservation District actually has an underwater drone that they were able to get footage when the students released the eels. So that was really fun. And then one more classroom highlight, our Millville area high school. These are the same students that did the American eel diet preference, but their teacher put together a test for them to do before and after the day of the eel release. And we found that the student scores increased by 17%, which was really encouraging to see just based on the activities we did that day together, which included a water quality study of the stream where the eels are being released at. We did a filtering challenge, so the students had to compete to create different filters to filter out different kinds of water pollution. And then this is where the students presented on their research as well. So another great outdoor event. Just they reserved a pavilion at a local park and were able to put the event together. So in addition to our students being really active and teachers, we've actually had a lot of other great partner engagement as well. And I think it just highlights the ability that these eels seem to have of just bringing out the creativity in these different groups. It's been really, really fun to witness. So again, the Bradford County Conservation District, they actually became our eel liaison, we're calling it, last year. They applied and received an environmental education grant from the DEP, and they were able to supply equipment and technical assistance to 8 schools in their county. So they are now in 7 of their 8 public schools and a few private schools in the county as well. And it's been really great having that touch point where they are able to help the teachers in that region. And we've had a few other groups or conservation districts express interest in using the same model. And I think there's a lot of potential in having a regional coordinator of that nature that SRBC can support, but then they also know their local groups on that more personal level where they can help them as well. So that was last year, and it's gone really well so far, and we're grateful for their help as well. And there's a few other organizations, including an outdoor education center in Wellsboro. They're called This Is My Quest, and they've been really great at reaching homeschool groups and also making sure that there's equitable access to the outdoors. They have a lot of accessibility sports that are available, including archery, and target practice and things where students in wheelchairs or that need any other accessibilities they have at this site. And they also have beekeeping and trout in the classroom and a 3D printer, and it's really hands-on for students. And this has been another way we've been able to reach any homeschool groups, whereas we can't unfortunately give a tanky eels to say parents that are homeschooling their kids, but we can have eels at centers like this where homeschool or charter or virtual schools can bring their students to witness the tank of eels. And then lastly, our other partner, the Montour Preserve in Danville, they actually have a live eel camera set up on their eel tank, and it's available 24/7 on YouTube. The link is here, and I'm sure these slides could be made available afterwards. But every time I click on the link, the eels are active. So that's been another great way to engage that virtual learning component. And just touching on our first college, we had Lycoming College participate last year for the first time. So they have a tank of eels. And since they are year round, they are actually keeping them this year as well so they can continue to grow. And what's been really exciting is that SRBC is now collaborating with their Clean Water Institute on our eel restoration work. So Lycoming is having some of their interns go out and do eDNA work at SRBC's eel restoration sites. And not only having a tank of eels in the classroom, but we've been able to take out their interns as well. And what's been actually really cool with this is the student in the photo, Olivia Humphrey there. She was actually in high school, one of the first students to participate in eels in the classroom with Mr. Van Wagner School back when she was in high school. And then when she ended up at the internship at Lycoming College, her advisor asked her, what are you interested in doing? And she said American eels because of eels in the classroom. And she's actually come out with SRBC now for some of our work. So it's been really exciting seeing the program being around long enough now to start to make those full circle connections. All right, so starting to wrap up, I just wanted to highlight a few other education and outreach opportunities that we've been able to do with the eels. So we take our eels each year to the Columbia County Clean Water Day, which is put on by their conservation district. We have live elvers for over 400 8th graders. So we are able to take the eels out in these small hermit crab tanks for outreach events. So that's another opportunity if you're a conservation district or a public learning center that was interested in having a tank. Unfortunately, we didn't come up with the name. I wish we did, but the Juniata County Conservation District dubbed it Eels on Wheels, where they take their eels out in these little smaller tanks, like you can see in the photo in the preschool classroom. And that's another way to engage outreach. But we've also taken the eels to other programs like the Hiawatha Floating Classroom in Williamsport. And because they do travel relatively well, as long as we have a bubbler and it's a short day trip, we are able to take them out for these other events. So looking ahead, next year, again, very excited to expand into New York State in the Susquehanna Basin. So we have a lot of exciting opportunities with that and a lot of things to figure out how to best manage to get our eels from the Conowingo Dam all the way up into New York. But we are excited to work through that and partner with USC as we now have eels all across the basin. And while we do that, we want to make sure we're still focusing on environmental justice initiatives and focusing on rural schools and making sure that different kinds of learning centers have an opportunity if they would like to have a tank of eels. A lot of teachers have participated in trout in the classroom, so they're familiar. So it's similar to that, but even if you don't have prior experience, you can still certainly sign up and have a tank. And I've also been trying to just maintain and connect my current network of teachers. They have truly blown me away with the efforts that they have put in. And so I really encourage you, if you are a current teacher or a new teacher and you have some idea, please reach out to me, and I'm happy to connect you with any other regional teachers in your area to bounce ideas off each other. And there's a link at the bottom too for all of this information and some additional resources on our website. And with that, I will thank you all for your time, and I will take any questions.
That was outstanding, Johanna. Thank you so much. That's super informative. I don't see any questions that came in. Oh, go ahead, Lydia.
Thank you so much. That was awesome. I want to only do eels in the classroom for for my work now. That was really inspiring. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I feel so lucky to do this. It's like the highlight of what I get to do.
Elizabeth?
Is there a minimum tank size that you would need in the classroom to do this?
Yeah, great question. So we recommend a 10-gallon tank size minimum for the 10 elvers. Most teachers seem to do 20 to 50 gallons, but a 10-gallon is the minimum size. And on our website, we do have a list of supplies that you would need, FAQs, resources, things of that nature, if you're curious.
If I did this up here in Chemung County, New York, do I need to get my own license from DEC, or does it work through affiliate partners? Like if I were to partner with USC on this, could I work under their license?
Yes, so the permits would fall through SRBC, so individual teachers wouldn't have to worry about permitting. This year in Pennsylvania, for the first time, teachers did have to fill out a release form when they released their eels to Fish and Boat. So just saying the location and how many. I'm not sure if New York would require that. That would still have to be found out. But at the most, it would likely just be, hey, this is where I released them and this is how many.
Okay, thank you.
To interrupt quickly, Liz, I think part of the grant that the USC has gotten recently, which we don't have a contract for, it's still underway, but we're hoping for the next season, we can fund all of those supplies for classrooms in New York, in the
That would
water.
be fantastic.
Right, Melissa? I'm not wrong on that, am I?
You're not wrong. No, we'll have to, I mean, we have a limited amount of funding for classroom supplies, so maybe we'll have like a an application process or something, so we can identify the schools most in need. But that's definitely going to be something we work out over the next couple of months. So we have Adrian. I saw your hand first.
Yes, hi. I may have missed this, but is there a way to apply like a tracking device to help discover their behaviors and the exact migratory times?
Yes. So unfortunately, I didn't have time to go into the research side. I had a couple slides, but had to cut them out. But when the eels are older, so the size that they're dropped off in the classrooms, they're not big enough yet to be tagged. But when they are older, SRBC and other organizations can add little pit tags, they're called. And they kind of act as almost an easy pass scanner, where an agency, if you collect an eel, you could scan it and then you would find out where it was last captured, how big it was at that time. So yeah, that is something that groups are working on.
That would be fantastic because they do eel monitoring in Statsburg, New York.
Oh,
So-
excellent. Yeah, I would love to connect with you, and we could share where we found eels.
Fabulous. I'll email you. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you.
Miranda, you had a question?
Yeah, actually my kids have questions.
Oh,
Question
excellent.
number 1 was, how big do the male eels get?
So they could get not quite as large as 4 feet, but I would say upwards of 3 feet, still pretty big.
Question number 2 was, I thought eels sting. Did these type of eels sting?
So a lot of people think that, and I totally see why you might think that because we hear about electric eels all the time. But these eels, they can't hurt you, they can't sting, they can't bite. They're slimy, but that slime coat protects them and keeps them safe. And so no, these guys can't sting.
Question number 3 is what is the water temperature recommendation for them?
Ooh, that's a good question. So I would have to check that exactly, but room temperature water in a classroom would be fine. They prefer a little on the cooler side, but as long as the tank would be in your classroom, it would be sufficient.
And question number 4 was, are you sure we can't get them this year?
Unfortunately, no. We just finished up our drop-offs in Pennsylvania for this school year, but you know, if you're out on the Susquehanna or a stream and you're out fishing, you never know. You might see one.
Great questions, class. Thank you. All right, well, I think it's time to wrap it up. But before we go, I wanted to share about next week's Watershed Wednesday. Next week on Wednesday, September 25th at 9:30, we'll have a panel discussion with 3 representatives from the Otsego County area who are passionate about citizen science. We'll have Andy Mason from the Delaware Otsego Audubon Society. We will have Susan Rosengrant from Canada-Rego Lake Improvement Association. And we'll have Jeff O'Hanley from the OCCA, all talking about ongoing efforts to get the public involved with environmental projects. So we look forward to that, and we hope to see you then. And I want to thank you again, Johanna. That was super.
All right, thank you all. Thank you for attending. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out.
All right, everyone. Have a great week.